Welcome to From the Left with Stephen Leon. Thank you to the GCD Network for hosting this show. Tonight's show is the first show that I haven't really had a plan for. So I think I'm just going to kind of turn this into a therapy session, as if all podcasts aren't. And maybe go over a little bit of just what it's like campaigning for this and how far I've come and what else there is left to do. So think about podcasts and them being therapy shows. I was just thinking about just sort of making that the theme of this. And what if Joe Biden had a podcast of his own? And I just in my head, I'm just thinking we'd be like, why don't people like me? You know? And it's really, Joe, it's because you have one, it's your voting record. Maybe that's the genius of Obama and change the whole paradigm where eventually Joe Biden did change, but it's kind of taken its toll to more alienation. If you think about it, the laws that have been branded with the Biden name have been misnomers. The Inflation Reduction Act is one of them. He's used Kamala Harris as a stage prop. You know what I mean? There's an article early on that said that she was a work in progress. When there's another article behind the scenes where Politico had reported that Obama he didn't say that that Biden shouldn't have ran. He just basically said that you don't have to do this. And then Biden was going on saying that he owed it to himself against Trump and or Charlottesville and everything like that. And it's just, unfortunately, the way that the parties are set up and they just blindly give the incumbent the nomination is just that needs to change, regardless of performance. You know what I mean? Like if there was a president in there that wanted to serve 2 terms, then it could be that way. But it's been that way since Ford. And again, that constitutional precedent since our first president, George Washington, set that 2-term limit. So FDR had 4, you know what I mean? So yeah. And you just wonder, you get into people's psyche and you think you're fooling us or whatever it is, if you're being genuine or not. And it's pretty bad with everything that's going on with the duopoly, as George Washington even himself forewarned about democracies anywhere. It was the founding fathers were very educated and they were fully aware of the warnings of what duopolies could do. But even then, you know what I mean? If you group a bunch of people together and you get them talking about ideas, eventually they're going to group into groups and that bladdest duck is going to quack and then you're going to go with that. Which brings me, I just thought of this. There's this really cool documentary. It's called Unfit. It's about Donald Trump, the psychology of Donald Trump. They follow around his social media posts and things like that. #unfit. And it goes on. They did this experiment with gorillas, and eventually they did break off into 2 different groups. And they had done an experiment where they took one of them out, and essentially one went into the other group and just started a bunch of ruckus for no reason. And they would turn on each other based on, even if they were friends before. So we're not gorillas, or apes anymore, and all that stuff. So it's interesting to see on how that's where we at with these duopolies. And running as an independent, it's very important to me that even George Washington himself, this is the district that he hailed from and passed away. Mount Vernon is in our 8th district. So that's really cool. Check it out. There are more independents running for the House of Representatives in this 2024 cycle than at any time before that I know of. And this is before the primaries. If you look at it, you have the incumbent Don Beyer and then this anti-Semitic, MAGA, Apex, whatever you want to call him, guy on the right. And it's just, and there's no other contenders. There's a 3 or 4 of them on the right that have withdrawn or disqualified, but it's just Hirad Christian came on the right, and then Don Beyer, then 3 candidates, including myself, and then 2 more. Mike Webb's one of them. And I think somebody else too. He's not on Ballotpedia yet. I don't know what the story is there. So that's saying that the people that want to be of service to represent this congressional district are independent. Most people are independent. You know what I mean? So that's something we do lean a certain way. I've asked people, what does it mean to be a genuine independent? And it's pretty much being able to stand for the answers I keep getting are those that are able to stand up even in their own party. And do that. So, and that can mean anything to anyone, exactly what an independent is. So, so I decided to run for the House of Representatives in September of last year. Initially, it was a very ambitious presidential campaign, maintaining my day job in intellectual property law, which I've been doing for 15 years, and looking at the the politics as a means, as a time for innovation is really, and I just developed a platform from that, looking at the collective interests. And when I could only get on Nevada state ballot, very easy to do. At that point, I was like, I'm not. They're just going to give. Biden announced that he was going to run in 2023 early on, and I'd already been doing that for like a year. I'm like, great, So I knew they were just going to give that to him. So at that point, I was like, I'll just run for the House of Representatives. And then, so I had to go against my competitor. I had to look at my competition. I had to go after them, find their dirt. And I don't always like. Recently, I've gone a little personal with the incumbent, and even with Hirak, Christian Kim. I don't go with the other guys. I see value there. I see political virginity there. I see something that we can do. Everyone else is just messed up. Don Byers corrupted money, and of course that MAGA ideologue's got to go. It's unconstitutional. It's pretty bad. I could go on and on for that. So, but even then, like the way that we look at that, you could say that there may not have been a MAGA if it wasn't for the Don Byer types. I'm not saying it justifies it. You know what I mean? It's actually what this shirt is about, what I'm wearing. It's the January 6th Retribution Fund. Fundamentally, what that means is that you're representing you're supporting media literacy and the American Anti-Corruption Act, which gets money out of politics. That's what American corruption is about, money in politics. You can look at that term and see that meaning different things in different cultures and all that. So let me backtrack a little more, going back to just going after some of the personal attacks that I've had to get people's attention. I'm going up against big money. I don't really like hitting below the belt. It's not something. My social media stuff, especially on Twitter, is all just campaign stuff. I'm trying to get momentum here. I'm trying to get the attention of the media. And, if I have to get a little volatile, then that's something I have to do. But it's not 100%. Behind all of that is my plan. And it should be about those ideas. And, Don Byers just, he's going back to school. He's not telling us how much time he's taking. He's saying early on, there was an interview that he did with the Washington Post, was it Live Messenger? Washington Post Live, where he goes on saying that the most concerning thing is the creative destruction of jobs, but he's more concerned with election security and things like that, which is fine. But he's not getting the equal priorities. And he goes on to say he doesn't worry much about the existential risks, because every time human beings have innovated something, whether it's agriculture or something like that, then we found a way. And he says it's going to be a painful experience for us to do that. But this isn't some cotton gin or something that helped us do something better. It's something doesn't think exactly the same as us, but there are no more jobs to be created. You know what I mean? It's just they're already being lobbied. You can Google that, by credible sources. You'll find that Google, Microsoft, places like that, they are already lobbying Congress. You know what I mean? And so he recently in an article, he'll say that he had he's in slippery words, in very political kind of way, like, yeah, I am concerned about jobs, but he's not saying what he's going to do about it. And I've already presented an idea, at least a idea, that to get IT departments to certify artificial intelligence, to have it properly used and be regulated that way. And then there's a chart that I posted from Visual Capitalist. It's an infographic that says which jobs are going to be affected the most in IT. It's a bunch of them. So again, that's in the media literacy section on my website. So yeah, that's again, going through. I started getting signatures. That's the first stage, right? And then in between all that, maintaining my day job, that's going to come first, and then just staying on top of the competition and getting signatures. It takes 1,000 here if you're running as independent. You might want to send 200 in case some of those aren't validated. I found that farmers markets are good. I'm on my way there. I don't have much time. The deadline's in mid-June, so I need to focus a lot of my energies on that. And I've been thinking that this would be my last show for a little while. I haven't talked to the producers at GCD, so this might be a surprise to them. I don't know if they will still have me. I got to work it out with them. And if I came back, I may not have the same slot. But I need to focus my time on getting signatures. I went out there yesterday and today, and there's some other events here in Clarendon. There's a music festival on Thursdays. And I may have to do this all myself. I had to borrow from my 401k to just stay self-funded with this, which isn't that big of a deal. I'm still in my mid-40s, so I'm not going to retire for another 22 years. So I figured I'd make it back. And then I've got some other options to look forward to also. So, but it's worth the risk for me. And so it's been neat to really talk to people. Today I was at Westover. That meant a lot to me. I went to Swanson Middle School. So that was really neat. People ask me where I'm from, and they're homeowners there at Westover Market versus the courthouse farmers market. More people, it doesn't mean they're not family oriented or community based. That's the idea. That I've gotten more signatures when people are, it's the weekend, they're a little more relaxed rather than just, hunting them down off of Roslyn Metro Station here is the busiest in this district, and people just going to work. You don't want to bother them. You have to read the situation. You know what I mean? There's a group of people that with kids, their hands are full. You know what I mean? But still, you want to. I find a 1 in 5. Just go up to them. Worst thing they can say is no, and then spend some time going over. Who are you? And it's always coming from the private sector. 15 years in intellectual property law. Have a couple patents myself. I look at law the same as we would principles with what is new and useful in the patent office, and that title has to be indicative of the claims. So if you're talking about, again, the Inflation Reduction Act, even Biden himself says that he wished that it was named something else, right? But it's not indicative of the claims. Coming out of COVID, consumer spending is what has brought the recent numbers down, right? And then, but even when there wasn't COVID, when there wasn't something to come back from, then consumer spending can drive inflation. So it's a very delicate balance of forward progress. And most of that spending comes from millennials and Gen Z. We just figured, hey, you know what I mean? It'll work out. I've been stuck in my house for like 2 years. I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to spend, and it's gelling out too. So, but it doesn't stop, what's going on with it's not just homelessness. Homelessness just hasn't gone up 12%. Prices, it's not just that, it's a bunch of other things. Even the demographic of homeowners, the ratio. So if you made 22,000 in the 80s and a home was 75,000, the ratio is now 5 to 8, where a home would cost 450,000 and you're making 75,000. I mean, those are averages, but still. So your ability to save, that extra anxiety and stress, that's one of the most expensive things. So it's not just me that's talking about CO salary caps. It's Robert Reich, who was Bill Clinton's favorite former labor secretary, and the economy did very well. Open up the foreign markets that did well. So now we need to cap that too. We need to do something, what I call a Gross Domestic Product Protection Act, where 70% of our labor manufacturing would have to stay here and 30% can be wherever. We'd have to do that incrementally. And since our employment is low at 3 or 4%, and we could just delegate that out to Mexico, create manufacturing jobs, treat them like as if they were American workers while you're facilitated in whatever kind of company that is not just AI, you know what I mean? And then you wouldn't have a big illegal immigration problem. It's very simple. Only a president can negotiate international treaties like that. So I hope Joe Biden, or anyone that knows Joe Biden, or if I get elected, that even the media would be able to be like, hey, listen, Joe, great. You know what I mean? Your name got us to where we're at right now, right? Because of the mess of Trump essentially just lying. If Donald Trump did his own podcast, it would just, he's, you have to understand, put yourself in his shoes. You know what I mean? First of all, his grandfather got rich by selling horse meat to gold rushers and made a brothel, at least one, right, that I can find. So, I'll twist that on social media, horse meats and where I brothel or a gold rush. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And now they're trying to get their Truth Social platform doing what's the last thing they have for the most part. And it's just capitalizing off disillusionment, you know what I mean? And blaming the federal institutions that are holding us accountable and safe and calling that the swamp. That's not the swamp. The swamp is the ideology of money and politics, and the American Anti-Corruption Act is what will mitigate that. There's a ranked choice voting element in there. There's and gerrymandering element in there. Not all gerrymandering, redistricting is unconstitutional. That's essentially what the right is trying to do. They're gentrifying the congressional districts. You know what I mean? And that's not cool. But under geological circumstances, if there's something like that, if I don't know, part of California gets broken off, then you're going to redistrict, right? So it's not unconstitutional. So, and the most importantly, getting rid of the money in politics, limiting lobbying, limiting PAC money, limiting all that stuff. You have someone like Don Byers appeasing to affordable housing that wants to see that go more left, where we're just essentially raise taxes in an economy where once you got off that social safety net, you wouldn't be able to afford the rent once you get subject to that wage. You know what I mean? Just end the cycle. So you got to go all the way up there to the chief executives that are over capitalizing on this country. And again, it's not just Robert Reich that's saying it. It's not just me that's saying it. It's Bernie that's saying that. And that will lead to suspicion that I would support everything that Bernie or Robert Reich talks about or stands for, and it's not. It's not that I'm opposed to universal health care or education, just how we're going to pay for it. And we may never be able to do that until we get asteroid money. That could be, I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 20 years, depending on how quickly we can come together as a species, as a society. It can be done. You know what I mean? It's just, you got people. That's why I get really kind of tempered when it comes to the disillusionment of things. You know what I mean? It's like, why it is so easy to be honest. If Donald Trump had his own podcast, then it would just be a bunch of superficial vanity. You know, the guy was raised as media was the new media, electronic media was becoming what it is today. And he just lived that way. Whatever personal insecurities that he has, you know, there's a lot of psychology that just kind of drives men overcompensate, human beings overcompensate for what they lack, or not. You know what I mean? So my confidence comes entirely from my plan. You know, just what the things that I've succeeded in life. If it's not maintaining my career, you know, in intellectual property law, coming in first place for the Lawyers Have Heart in my category for paralegal males back in 2015, or just how I performed in grade school and just taking esteemable actions and seeing, you know, like the law firm that I work at now, they were going to outsource their docketing department. I came in, brought a few simple tools, even if it's just like a shared inbox, you know, to keep everyone on the same page. And the numbers that they were experiencing have, for the most part, gone away. They were, you know, missing deadlines, and you know, there's always amendments and things that you can do for that. But it was, so they almost outsourced. So we were able to come back from that by just, you know, we hired a couple more people, and so that firm is thriving and doing well. And I love working there too. It's the neighborhood. It's in Alexandria, so King Street. I can lean back in my chair and I can see George Washington's Masonic monument there, you know, and that's really cool to really know what George Washington was about. Though in his tour over there, you'll see a Bible there, but you know, if you know anything about Masonhood, the Freemasons, is that it's basically just, it's a fraternal organization. Do you believe in God? They don't care which God it is. It's just that it's a brotherhood. There's a lot of cool conglomerations or whatever you want to, the Job's daughters. I remember they wanted me to join, and you know, I attend church meetings in locally around here, so I in the evenings, so that keeps me balanced. And that's co-ed, and it's based on principles and helping the community. You know what I mean? Helping not teaching, sharing my experience of what worked for me to get myself you know, back into the game. If I lost my faith, if I forgot that God loved me, you know what I mean? It's very easy to get caught up in it. It's crazy how easy it is for some of us to do that. You know, and once we come back to the sunlight of the spirit, or whatever you want to call it, we start seeing those esteemable actions, and then what it takes to maintain those as an adult. You know what I mean? If it's taking care of your health and being consistent with that. And you know, I get it. I put this thing on social media around Christmas time where I wasn't trying to rebrand Santa Claus or Christmas or anything, but I just kind of thought about how can I, again, get people's attention into my platform and kind of get them, you know, thinking about it in a different way, that they can understand my, just at least an entry point. Hi, I'm just not some new guy over here that's going to mess everything up or whatever it might be. Just who is this new guy? And basically, I was saying that Santa, the elves need the designs. So I mean, if you look at Christmas as a reward, or anything new that gets on the shelf, that's all intellectual property. You know what I mean? And if you know, for people to actually go and do their homework, when it comes to political science, we're dealing with things that are intangible, things that people's livelihoods, you know what I mean, the things where we want to go. Some of those things are incalculable. And just listening to everybody in the free society that we are and getting that to fruition, you know, can be a challenge. So, you know, and I was speaking to both parents and kids as if I was Santa Claus's designer. I meet with them once a year to go over these new designs. But the problem is that I was campaigning for almost 2 years as a president, you know, and just hardly got, I made some momentum of very compared to, you know, I just wasn't involved in that machine. It was very difficult to, I don't explain why that is, you know. So, I mean, for me, if I were Biden, then I would have been like, look, you know what, I'm getting old here. I can't do this. Why don't I go to Ballotpedia and look at all the candidates and vet them out and just rate it out that way and give someone a shot? That's not what he did, right? So we all would have wanted that, right? And then there would be no need for the right to try to prevent us from socialism with Donald Trump, who's just failed. He's just, guy's superficially vain and doesn't neither one of them. This is such a neat political science kind of thing, where if you were to say that rocket science is fundamentally the research and development of making rockets more efficient. Well, political science, we're dealing with people's brains, and their livelihoods, and to make that as efficient as it can. Who do you trust? You know what I mean? There's no, in such a free kind of realm. It's, you know what I mean? We just automatically assume that just because our politicians have a particular demeanor in the camera, or they just kind of trust them like that. That is no surprise to have someone be nice to your face and then be completely different behind the scenes. If Thomas Jefferson were here today, you probably wouldn't vote for him. The guy was not known for his oratory skills. He was an incredible writer, and even then, he borrowed a lot of things of just what was going on in Virginia, and just things that people, even beyond the structures of monarchy or whatever it might be, just things that people wanted. You know what I mean? You look at if you want to use the Bible as your absolute affinity for government, which it's not. There wouldn't be in America to begin with. You know what I mean? Or there wouldn't have been a Protestant movement or any of that if that was true. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not the first person to ever have. Lincoln was like that. Washington was like that. Everyone's like, there are some parallel truths in the Bible. But beside the point. But even then, when the Bible was the Enlightenment in France, the Galileo, you know what I mean, to branch off of what was the doctrine of truth, then, even though most people knew that it wasn't, that hasn't changed at all. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so yeah. But really getting out there into the community, and I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, you're subject to, I only have so much time. So the time that I have spent this far, stage one, getting signatures is, has been neat. I get to talk to people, and that 1 in 5, you get a reaction. You kind of want, I wonder if they're conservative, and just the way they carry themselves. You know what I mean? Kind of read the situation. But then every once in a while, you get something really cool, just like anything else. Today, I met a coworker, Victoria Veersing. I've been talking about her. She was a Democratic candidate last year. She was primaried out. So I'd like to break her in if she'd be willing to work staff, and then have her help manage the American Anti-Corruption Act. I know that she had that in her platform, kind of make it easier for her. Because I really, all I want to do is serve one term, and then be able to do that, take 2 years off, work on some things in the private sector that I've got going on, then maybe come back and run for president again. See how much I can get done that first year, take a step back, and then just do it. And even then, I might even just serve one term as president if I wanted to. Why serve two? Who'd want to? Why would you want to serve 8 years? And that is a huge sacrifice. You're never going to have, you might have Secret Service and things like that, but really, like, there's it's a sacrifice, and there's things that a part of you's taken from it. You know what I mean? And people think that clout would be something of ecstasy, and it's not. It is and it isn't. I mean, it's a sacrifice. You know what I mean? That's everything. Anyone that's ever tried to do anything, anyone that's famous that has that clout, you know what I mean? It's not always what it seems. So, but it is cool to get involved, to be of service, to really take that innovation kind of mind, not just spirit or talking points. Really, if you know my platform and you've seen it, and just like anything, it's gonna take a little while, to get it. You're not going to get it the first time. If I tried explaining this stuff to my son, he's not going to get it. If I was his age, 24, I'm not going to know what any of this was. Even if my dad and I would talk about all kinds of things, I wouldn't quite get it. You'd have to break down every little thing. There's a reason why you have to be a certain age to be president. Your brain isn't fully developed until your mid-20s, and the experience that you would have to know how everything kind of clicks. Pretty cool that the founding fathers just knew that intuitively, right? So, I was going to say something about getting to talking to people, really, like what's most the signatures, and just getting involved that way. There was what else? What else was really cool? That met Victoria Veersing's coworker. You just get to know a lot of people and just their energy. You never know, like, from a distance, someone might give you a look, and you might psych yourself out and think they're not giving me a positive look. They're probably just going to say no. But if you go up anyways and they say yes, you never know where you're going to get. You never know. So just that 1 in 5, go up in there and do it. Stage 2 for me would be this is what I was going to say. So I have an idea, and I haven't presented this yet to the other independent candidates, but I've been in contact with them. Dave Kennedy, he got his signatures first, and then he filed in the FEC. So he's on like Ballotpedia and things like that. So the first thing we've already exchanged some communication on social media, and we're probably gonna meet up for coffee. And I wonder, and this is an idea, and I'm gonna present to him that what if out of the three candidates, and if Mike Webb gets, or if he there's Mike Webb, three others, including myself, and there's someone else. So if there are four independent candidates, and we all chat and we all debate whether the mass media, mainstream media, puts us up there on a debate stage, we'll invite the primary the party candidates, and then just have a debate based on the issues. And out of the independent candidates, if one of them wins, then maybe start a pact that we would hire each other into the staff. So imagine what that would do for the country when there's an independent thing that's trying to. I've looked at Dave Kennedy's website. He writes a lot of principles. You know, if you see on LinkedIn, I kind of just comes out a little blunt. You know what I mean? It's not the same way that I am on camera. I'm not the same way that I am on social media. I'm certainly not the way that I am on the street or in the office. You know what I mean? We're just diverse people like that. So multifaceted is another way to look at it. So that would be neat, you know. So we're on the same page with pretty much everything. It's just with his items, they just seem like the principle, which is good. With mine, it's the outline, the fundamental outline. It brings the third party or nonpartisan organizations that have helped out, if that's represent us with the American Anti-Corruption Act or the Digital Democracy Project. The American Capitalism Protection Act has been elements of that have been adopted from Robert Reich, Bernie. So it's almost as if you took all the 2020 presidential candidates and that one thing that they kind of went after. Like I adopted Tom Steyer was my first choice in the 2020 election. I don't think he had a solid plan. I don't think he read Bill Gates's book. You know, say what you want about Bill Gates and Microsoft and the reasons why he got divorced, but what he's doing with the Gates Foundation is pretty cool. He signed up for that. Donate 90% of your wealth to it's just wherever. I think it's like someone on Facebook had, just because I had mentioned that book just because I mentioned the Bill Gates, like, will you support Bill Gates? And he had that thing with Epstein. I mean, he never went to an island. I'm not trying to justify the guy, but he just knew who he was, beside the point. And then they just completely nixed me just because I mentioned, you're not looking at the ideas. You know what I mean? Yeah, the guy, he's made mistakes or not, it's none of my business. You know what I mean? Did the law come after him? What if they tried? I'm sure they would have, they did with Microsoft. And then, there's that antitrust thing. Beside the point, my point is the ideas. And in that the three levers I've talked about, the finance, the government, and technology, that's what you want to look at. And from that, and we're all part of one awareness. You know what I mean? You can look at the sky, it's blue. You know what I mean? But that doesn't always mean the person who's saying that the sky is blue has it all like, do they have their own self-awareness? So I'm fully aware of the things that I've done on social media and in my life, and how fair my jabs have been, or hit below the belt. Just trying, like, my thing is that's just part of campaigning, and it sucks. I wish if there's any would be leaders of the elected representatives, you wouldn't have to do that. Unfortunately, it's just something I gotta get attention, and I don't do that to everybody. It's just very particular ones where I take the creative liberty. So yeah, that would be cool if all the independents did that. If we looked out for one another and then put each other on staff. If it was David Kennedy, I'd work for him, vice versa, bring in Jerry Amy, have him work on some stuff. He could, and then start like a movement like that would be very unique, where we would be able to get things done in a completely different way, coming from one of the most fundamental and strongest constitutional districts in the entire country. We have a certain temperament around here. George Washington may have led that, to founding the father of the nation, right? So that means a lot to me, and I don't take that with just a superficial kind of vanity thing. So it bugs me when I see that people, someone like Trump, who just was born into the media. Look what he did with it. You know what I mean? He just blames the institutions that are trying to hold him accountable. That's not fair. I don't think he's going to win. I think the numbers are going to be. I think Biden will win. They won't be the same as they were before. I'm going to vote for Biden again. Got no choice. You know what I mean? It's better him. If you can put it on a scale, I got a minute left here. If you put it on a scale, 0, 7 being the best, he's like at a 2. Donald Trump's like at a -5. So it's pretty much where it's at. So I think I'm going to take a little break from these shows and maybe come back in stage 2, which will be about mid-July, something like that. So I can focus my energies on getting these signatures. and then see where we're at then. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Stephen Leon, and I will see you later. Have a good night.